It is not about Jawaharlal Nehru versus who. It is not about Jawaharlal Nehru versus who. It is about the new India. It is about which some people say was inaugurated in 2014, and there are some people who have gone to the extent of saying that India gained independence. And there are some people who have gone to the extent of saying that India gained independence in 2014. White paper also did not mention the rural distress. White paper also did not. The white paper also did not mention the rural distress. The white paper also did not mention the rural areas. The white paper also did not mention the rising demand for Manrega. The white paper also did not mention. The white paper also does not mention. Did not mention about the state of affairs in. The white paper also does not mention. Did not mention about the state of affairs in rural India, and especially in farmers. Somebody asked me immediately. Let me begin by saying the white paper. That somebody asked me immediately after the government for my reaction to the white paper. I said, look, and they asked me for my reaction. Wait for the government to give me a white paper. Look, I do not have to wait for the government because I get my white paper on Indian economy. On the Indian economy. Because I get my white paper once a month on the Indian economy. And also once a week. Because once a week I go myself and buy once a week. Because once a week and once a month I go myself and to the provision store. And once a month, I go myself and to the provision store. So that gives me an idea of what is happening in the economy. So that gives me the surest way of what is happening in the economy. To get an idea of the surest way in the Indian economy, or any economy for that matter. To get an idea of what is happening in the Indian economy. To go yourself or any economy for that matter. Is to go yourself. I also get once in 2-3 days. Another small white paper. And I also get once in when I go to the gas station and fill my petrol. Another small white paper. These are the three times when I go to the gas station and fill my petrol. I get my 3 times in a month. I'll give you a small example. I'll get it down. I keep noting down because I want to see. I'll give you a small example. Because I'll note it down. I keep very misleading if you look at the headline inflation. See, it'll be they might say if you look at the headline, it's just under 6%. They might say come down to 5.8%. It's just under 6%. It's to me come down to 5.8% or 4.2%. To me, as living in a society. A person. These headline figures living in a society make sense to me. These headline figures sense to me is do not what do I pay when I go. What makes sense to me is what do I pay when I'm not talking about 2014. How much did I pay? I'm talking a couple of months ago. I'm not talking about 2014. What did I pay? Say about 2 or 3 months. I'm talking about. I've for what did I pay for today's talk? Say about 2 or 3 months. Is I've for today's talk. What I did is I've noted that I paid in November 2023. Prices that and what I paid at the beginning of this November 2023. We are on the last day. And what I paid at the beginning of this again and the March. We are on the last day. Dal and I'll be going to the market again and in November 23. I paid 110 rupees. In November 23. This month beginning I paid 170 rupees. This month, Jaggery, I paid 170 rupees. And the beginning of this month, Jaggery, I paid 42 rupees. Sugar in November, beginning of this month, I paid 34 rupees. And sugar in November, beginning of this month, I paid 34 rupees. When I said this to a friend of mine, he said, beginning of this month, how did you get it for 42 rupees? I paid 45 rupees. A friend of mine, he said, so there are some. How did you get it for 42 rupees? I paid 45 rupees. The perishable, so the vegetable kind of thing. We use a lot of the perishable, the vegetable kind. We use a lot of, we use a lot of chili also. Of course, in Andhra Pradesh, we use ginger. I paid 95 rupees chili also. 23. Ginger, I paid this month beginning 95 rupees in 23. Green chilies, I paid 65 rupees in November. Green chilies, I paid 65 rupees in November. So this month beginning I paid 82 rupees. Is a very, very loud and clear white paper
is a very,
if you want to look at the data,
white paper.
data will tell you that
if you want to look at the data,
headline inflation is about
data will tell you that
the
headline inflation is about
sometime back I saw a newspaper headline
sometime back
I saw
the rate of inflation
newspaper headline
is
lowest
the
in the
rate
last
of
2
inflation
quarters. That is the headline.
is lowest.
I'm not somebody who would just
in the
read
last
the headline
2
and leave
quarters.
it. That is the headline.
I read the.
I'm not somebody who would just
what
read
was
the headline
the
and leave
text?
it underneath the headline.
I read the.
It said
what
inflation
was the text
fell
underneath the headline?
from
it said
7.2%
inflation fell
to 6.9%.
7.2%.
Does it really make
to 6.9%
any difference to a common consumer like you and me?
Does it really
From 7.2% to
any difference to a
6.9%.
common
That
consumer
is,
like
it
you
seems
and
is the
me?
lowest
From
in the last
7.2% to 6.9%.
2 quarters.
That is
the
how
lowest
misleading
in the last.
the figures
2
and the
quarters,
kind
3
of
quarters.
massaging
That is how
misleading
newspapers do,
the
which are,
the figures and the
every
kind of
newspaper,
massaging it.
they just cannot print anything which is not
now every newspaper
which doesn't humor
they
the
just
government.
cannot print anything which
But
is
then,
not.
if you look at the
which doesn't humor the
government,
government.
the detailed
But then, if you look at the
figures for the inflation,
vegetable
the
inflation,
detailed is about
figures for
27%.
the inflation. Vegetable
It's more than
inflation
27%.
is about 27%.
Pulses inflation is at
It's more than
19.5%.
Cereals
inflation
inflation is at 19.
is at 7.8%.
Cereals inflation,
Sugar inflation
is at 7.8%. The impact of all
Sugar
this, and
inflation
coupled
is at
with that is the
7.5%. Fuel
the
inflation.
impact of all this, and
Now,
coupled
in
with
Hyderabad,
that
I pay
is the,
107
fuel
107 rupees for a liter of
Now,
petrol.
in Hyderabad, I pay 170
And
107
the other day,
rupees
just 2 days
for a
before,
liter of petrol.
I was in Vijayawada. They said it was
And
112
The other day,
rupees a
just
liter.
2 days before,
Because
I was in
transportation,
Vijayawada.
longer
They said it was
distances.
112
So
rupees.
this is the kind of
because
scenario we have.
transportation, longer
And
distances.
on the
this
5th,
is the kind
coming
of
5th,
scenario
April
we have.
5th, the Reserve
And,
Bank of India is going to
on the
have a
5th, coming
monetary
5th,
policy
April 5th,
committee's meeting.
The Reserve
People are
Bank of
expecting
India is
whether
going
they
to
will
have a monetary
reduce
policy
or
committee's
adjust the
meeting.
interest rates.
People are
repo
expecting
rate,
whether
and
they will
reverse repo rate, and
reduce
things
or
like that. That
adjust
what they are
the
going to do.
interest
But
rates, repo
they
rate,
have
and
not been
reverse repo rate
altering
and
the
things like that. That
rates
what they are going
for
to
a
do. But
long time because
they have
are
not been
satisfied
altering
with
the
the progress
rates
that the government
for a
is
long
making
time
in
because they are
controlling
not
or
satisfied
taming the
with the
inflation.
progress that the government is making,
especially
in
5
controlling or
states
taming the inflation.
have
Especially
the,
5 states,
the tolerable
have,
level,
the
tolerable limit. What
the
the Reserve Bank of
tolerable
India
level
calls
of inflation
tolerable limit
is 6%,
which itself is very
what the
high. The
Reserve Bank of
highest
India
tolerable
calls of
limit
inflation
for
is
inflation,
6%, which
according to
itself
the
is
Reserve
very
Bank,
high.
is
The
6%.
highest tolerable limit for inflation,
About 5
according to
states
the
in
Reserve
India
Bank, is
have already
6%.
breached. And this is the headline inflation. I'm
About
not
5
talking
states
about
in
the
India have
food
already
inflation,
breached.
medical inflation,
And this is the
education
headline inflation. I'm not
cereals
talking about the
inflation,
food inflation,
sugar inflation,
medical
eggs inflation. I'm not talking about those
cereals
things.
inflation,
But headline itself,
sugar inflation,
for instance,
eggs inflation. I'm not talking about
Gujarat's
those,
inflation is
things.
6.21%.
But headline itself,
Karnataka
for
is
instance,
6.1%.
Gujarat's
Haryana is
inflation is
6.24%.
6.24%.
Telangana is
Karnataka is
6.34%.
6.1%.
Odisha is
Haryana is
7.55%.
6.24%.
Telangana
So
is
many states are breaching
6.34%.
already.
Odisha
This
is
kind of
7.55%. The
So
highest
many
tolerable
states are
limit
breaching
for,
already this kind
inflation.
of
The tolerable.
the highest tolerable limit for inflation.
This is one. And then what is happening?
This is
because of this.
And then
Is
what is happening because of this is
that you have to juxtapose what is happening in the other sector. And
you
the
have to
other thing
juxtapose
that
what is happening
the
in the
white
other
paper
sector.
unfortunately
And
doesn't
the
talk
other
about
thing that
is the employment
white paper
unemployment situation.
unfortunately doesn't talk about is the employment.
I will give you two or three real life situations. Aniruddha, and
I
then
will
give
give
you
you
the data.
two or three
Number
three
one,
real
in
life situations,
2020,
and then give you the data.
to
Number
beginning,
one, in 2020,
I think in January, February,
we had a
huge commotion
I think in
January,
UP
February.
and Bihar.
That is because the railways have announced
UP and Bihar.
some non-technical
That is
jobs.
because the railways have announced the number of jobs
Some
that the railways
non-technical
have
jobs announced.
the number of
vacancies
jobs
was
that the railways have
35,000. For 35,000 jobs,
vacancies was
there
35,000. For 35,000 jobs, there was
listen to the
35,000
vacancies.
jobs for 35,000 jobs. For 35,000 jobs, for 35,000 jobs, the applicants were 1 crore. For 35,000 non-technical jobs, the for 35,000 number of applicants jobs, 1 crore 25 number of applicants were 1 crore 25 lakhs.
There's this problem in Gaza Strip. And Israeli government
there's this problem in
sacked
Gaza
all the
Strip.
Palestinians who were working.
And Israeli government has sacked
And
all
they
the
wanted to
Palestinians who were
recruit
working
people from
for
different
their
countries. And one of the candidates for recruitment is
from
India.
different countries. And one of the
And they've opened
candidates
recruitment centers
for
in UP
recruitment is
in
India.
Haryana initially, and they've extended that to
they've opened
Madhya
recruitment
Pradesh
centers
and
in UP
Rajasthan
in
also
Haryana
after
initially,
the
and
state
they've
government
extended that
elections.
to Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan also.
Hordes and
state
hordes of
government
youngsters are queuing up outside
And,
the recruitment centers.
Hordes and hordes of
And
youngsters
journalists
are queuing
have
up
gone
outside
and
the
asked
recruitment
these
centers.
youngsters who were lining up there.
And journalists
Are
have
you
gone
aware that
and
there is
asked these
a
youngsters who were lining up
disturbance
there?
in that area? There's a war.
Are you aware
situation in
that there
area.
is a disturbance
Are
in
you
that
aware
area? There's
that
a
you're
war
risking your
situation in
lives
that area?
when you go there?
Are you aware that you're
what the
risking your
youngsters have said?
lives
It's all reported in the
when you go
newspapers.
there to work?
The youngsters have said,
And you know
look,
what the youngsters have said?
it's all
Instead of
reported
dying here
without
without
a
a
job.
job. The youngsters have said, look,
Let me go there.
instead of
let us
dying
go
here without
there,
a job,
work as long as it is possible.
let
as long
me
as
go
we are
there,
alive,
let
and
us go
send
there,
some
work
money
as long
back
as it is
home, and
possible,
we
as
live
long
there.
as we are
This is
alive,
what
and
it is.
send some money
This is the second
back
thing.
home. And
The
we
third
live
thing
there.
I want to
This is
draw
what
your
it is.
attention to, Aniruddha,
This is the second thing.
the
Very
third thing I
recently,
want
just a
to
few
draw your
days
attention
before,
to, I learned this. Most people in India still do
very
not know this.
recently, just a few
I
days
came to know
before,
this because
I
it
learned
is
this.
most
Most
people
people
in India still do not know this. I came to know this because it is insignificant way in the newspapers here in Bangladesh, because somebody
insignificant way in the newspapers here in
belonging to
Bangladesh,
Hyderabad,
because somebody
his dead body came from Ukraine.
belonging to Hyderabad,
So this
his
is a
dead
small
body
news
came
item.
from Ukraine.
So when people inquired why a dead
So
body
there's a small
of
news
somebody belonging
So
to
when people
Hyderabad had come
inquired
back from
why a dead
Ukraine,
body of somebody
then
belonging to
people came
Hyderabad
to
had
know
come back from
that
Ukraine,
Russia has been
then
recruiting
people
youngsters
came to
from
know
here to
that
aid or help
Russia
their
has
war
been
effort in
recruiting
Ukraine.
youngsters from here to aid or help their war
And people
effort
are
in
dying
Ukraine.
there. Now you can imagine people are prepared to go to
And people are dying there.
Gaza.
Now you can
People are
imagine
prepared to go
people are
to
prepared to go to
Ukraine,
Gaza,
and
people are
lining
prepared
up
to
for
go to
manual jobs, non-technical
Ukraine.
jobs.
and people are
For
lining up for
35,000
manual
jobs,
jobs,
no,
non-technical
25
jobs.
lakhs applicants. This
For
is the
35,000
grave
jobs,
unemployment situation.
25
And
lakhs applicants.
this is youth
the
unemployment.
grave unemployment.
Let me
situation.
underline
And youth
This is
unemployment
youth
in
unemployment.
India. Let me underline that.
Aniruddha,
Youth unemployment
roughly
in India,
about 24%.
Aniruddha, is
24
roughly
youngsters
about 24
out of every 100.
24
are
youngsters
unemployed today.
out of every 100. And we are in the
unemployed
company
today.
of countries like
Iran,
we are in
Syria,
the company of
Yemen,
countries like
Lebanon,
Iran,
countries like
Syria.
that. Our neighbor, which is a
Lebanon,
small neighbor,
countries
Bangladesh,
like that.
their
Our
youth
neighbor,
unemployment
which is a
rate
small
is
neighbor, Bangladesh,
just 12%, as against
their
24%
youth unemployment
in
rate
India.
is just 12%, as against
And
24% in India.
if you want to take this a little forward,
And
the
if you want to take
pressure
this a little forward
on Manrega,
the
which is a minimum
pressure
wage thing,
on
has
Manrega,
increased manifold,
which is a minimum wage
in
thing,
the last 1 year or 2 years.
has increased
So much so,
manifold
Aniruddha, that
in the last 1 year or 2 years.
last financial year,
so much so,
allocation
Aniruddha,
for
that
Manrega for full 1 year
last
allocation
financial year's
was exhausted
allocation for
in 6 months'
Manrega
time.
for full 1 year
That is the
allocation
kind of pressure.
was exhausted in 6 months' time.
This is what.
That is the kind of pressure.
And
This is what
the government of
And
India
the
has
government of India
told the
has
parliament that this
told the
was in this
that
statement was made in
this
August
was
2023.
this statement
But
was
since
made
then,
in August
the latest figures,
2020.
people are estimating.
But since
it
then,
could be more.
but at
the
that
latest
time, the
figures,
government's
people
own
are
figures,
estimating it
the
could be
debt,
more.
but
Of
at
Government
that
of
time, the
India
government's
was
own figures,
155.6
the debt of
crores.
Government of
Of
India
course, people have updated
was
after that, but I'm giving you the government figure.
155.6 crores.
Of course, people have updated after that, but I'm giving you the government figure. Crores. Government debt.
155
which in the last 10
lakh
years
crores
has
government debt.
increased by about
Which in the last 10
100 lakh
years
crore.
has
So
increased
from
by about
47 to
100 lakh crore.
2014,
From 47
that
to
debt was about 50 crores, 50 lakh crores.
2014,
And
that
since
debt
then,
was about 50
it has
crores,
increased
50
to
lakh crores.
155.6 lakh
It has
crores.
increased to
This is the debt.
155.6
And this
lakh
is
crores.
more than roughly about 60%
And
of
this
India's
is more
GDP.
than roughly about 60% of India's
This is the debt
GDP.
situation.
Okay.
And then when
This
this
is
is
the
the
debt
this is the scenario about the debt.
And then when this is
The
the
government
government
of
scenario
India
about the debt,
has adopted a
uh,
policy
the government of India
whereby scheduled
has
banks
adopted a
and
policy
nationalized banks, and
whereby
if you include
scheduled
the
banks and
in Maharashtra you have a
nationalized
lot of
banks and
cooperative banks.
if
I'm not
include
including
the
them.
in
I'll
Maharashtra you
include
have
them
a lot of
also in a
cooperative
while.
banks and other things. I'm not including
If you
them.
just look at
I'll
the
include them
scheduled
also
banks
in a
and
while.
nationalized banks,
If you
the
just look at the scheduled
corporate
banks
debt
and
write-off
nationalized banks,
is somewhere around
corporate debt
25
write-off
lakh crores.
is somewhere around 20.
And if you bring in all the other banks also,
and if you
it
bring in
is
all the
amounting
other
to
banks
about
also,
40 lakh crores.
it is amounting to about
This is the
40 lakh
corporate debt.
Now, this is the
On the other hand,
corporate
not only
debt.
they're writing off
Now,
or writing down the debt.
not only
When you
they're
ask the government, they
writing
say, no, no, it's just the
writing
bookie
down
adjustment.
the
We are
debt.
not really letting them
when
off.
you ask the
We
government,
are
they
also
say, no, no,
collecting.
it's just the
Then
book
when
adjustment. We are
inquiries
not
were
really
made, how
letting
much
them
was
off.
actually
We are also
collected?
collecting.
When they wrote
when
off
inquiries
40
were made,
lakh,
how much
when
was
they
actually
written down
collected?
40 lakh
When they
crores,
wrote
their
off
collection
40 lakh,
out of that was
when they
only 2
written
lakh
down
crores.
40 lakh crores,
So
their
net
collection
is somewhere
out of
around
that was only
38,
2 lakh
36,
crores.
37, 38
So
lakh crores.
net is somewhere around 38, 36, 37, 38 lakh crores.
Not only this is
No.
not only the situation, but in addition,
Not only
let us look at
this is
what is
not only
happening
the situation,
to
but
a
in
lot
addition,
of HNIs.
let us look at what is happening
They are not investing
to a lot of
in India.
HNIs.
The domestic
They are not
investment
investing
in India has
in
been
India.
falling. If
The
you compare
domestic
broadly
investment
before
in
14
India
and
has been
now,
falling.
I'm not talking about
If you
even
compare
earlier.
broadly before 14
What
and
used to
now,
be about
I'm not talking
31%
about even
earlier
earlier.
is now stands at around
What
19%
used to be about
20%.
31% earlier
that was
is
the
now
drastic,
stands at around 19% to
fall
20%.
in domestic investment.
So that was the
Notwithstanding
drastic,
what the
fall
captains of
in domestic
industry and big business people
Notwithstanding
say in the conclaves,
what the
India is
captains
doing
of
great,
industry
India is a great
and
story,
big business people
growth
say
story.
in the conclaves,
Notwithstanding all
India is
that.
doing
But
great,
to
India is
me,
a great
the
story,
proof of pudding
growth story.
notwithstanding
Is
all that.
if
But to me, if
the
the
proof of pudding
India INC is
is
confident
if
about the future
if the
or the present
India
of
INC is
domestically,
confident about the future
the signal
or the
would be their
present of
investment,
India
not their talk.
domestically.
So
The
this is
signal
not
would be their investment,
not only that.
not their talk.
The number of people
So
who
this
are
is
leaving
not-
India,
Not only
not
that,
for sightseeing, not
the
for
number
tourism,
of people
not for
who are
studying,
leaving India,
not for visiting,
sightseeing,
but
not for
leaving
tourism,
India for
not for
good,
studying,
relinquishing the
not for
citizenship
visiting, but leaving India for good, relinquishing the citizenship
and migrating. The numbers have been steadily
and
rising.
migrating.
2014, 2014, the entire year, we lost about 1,30,000, and most of them were HNIs, relinquishing of citizenship. 15, 1,31,000. 16, 1,41,000. 17, 1,33,000. 22, the latest information that we have, after that the figures did not come, is 2,25,000. Interestingly, Aniruddha, your neighboring state, Gujarat, contributes about 22,300 in this. A lot of people from Gujarat are also leaving. Don't smile. Okay. You're all in the United States. And you've gone long ago and you've gone legally. But are you aware that a lot of Indians now, it's not just the South Americans and Africans and some Middle East or North Africans, not just that. A lot of Indians are also trying to enter the United States illegally. Are you aware in America? Yeah. And again, a lot of people from Gujarat. And the government's own admission to a question in the Rajya Sabha was that according to, I mean, it's not Government of India's estimates, it is the US immigration's estimates was that in 23, 96,917 Indians tried to cross into the United States illegally. They held them. And those who escaped and went around, those who were undetected, can be anybody's guess. This is another one. And then the rural distress is something which is, as I told you about the pressure on Manrega. The rural incomes are stagnant. Inequality has risen so much. I don't know if you've heard the latest report of the World Inequality Report. Inequality Lab is run by a very renowned and reputed economist called Thomas Piketty in Paris. They look at inequality throughout the world, in all the countries, historical data. Whenever data was available, some of the countries have data for a long time, 200 years, 250 years even. But they have looked at India's data, and their conclusion is that inequality in India now is higher even compared to inequality during the British Raj. 1% of India's population commands 22% of its income. And 1% of India's population commands 40% of its wealth, assets. This is the kind of inequality we have. This is the historical high. And the inequality has sharpened, grown rapidly during the New India last 10 years. This is another one which we need to keep in mind. I do not want to go on and on with the economy situation. This is one. Let me. We can have some more discussion on this. When there are Q&As. Of course, there might be a lot of questions on this. Let me turn my attention to the political, the social structure, and the federal structure. Now, when this new India was inaugurated in 2014, that time it was cooperative federalism. And Team India consisting of the Prime Minister of India and all the chief ministers. And Team India meant that Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister, and all the Prime Ministers who have gone by before. That kind of a inclusive talk. But that talk you don't hear anymore in New India. It's all over. Team India is the Prime Minister and 140 crore people of India. They're all a family now. Then, in this, the plurality of India, the biggest political party, BJP claims that it is the biggest political party not only of India, it is the biggest political party of the world. This biggest political party does not have a place for one single member from the biggest minority in India, that is the Muslim minority, in its Council of Ministers, in its cabinet, in its Lok Sabha parliamentary party, in its Rajya Sabha parliamentary party. Not a single person. And not a single member belonging to that community in the largest state of India from their party. the UP BJP legislature party, not a single member. Not a single member in the Gujarat legislature party. Not a single member when they held power in Karnataka. Not only that, there was no single member in their parliamentary party, their Rajya Sabha, in their Lok Sabha, in the UP Assembly, in Gujarat Assembly. Not a single person belonging to the largest minority of India was even given a ticket. Now, I don't have to remind you of the kind of language one ruling party MP used against the MP belonging to that minority community. I don't have to. And I do not also have to remind you of the calls for economic boycott, calls for jihad, if you have to live in this country, you have to, chant certain slogans, chant certain things. And then, saints, so-called, holy men having a dharma sansad and calling for, ethnic cleansing and keeping arms at home and, that kind of a thing. And, regular lynchings of people who sell bangles, who sell, who have small shops and things like that. That's the regular thing that is going on. This is the kind of plurality that we should see today in India, in New India. And look at the federal structure. Now, ours is a federal structure. And let me tell you again the economic and political implications of what is happening today. Some of the states which are not looked upon favorably by the ruling party at the center, the bills passed by their legislatures, the governors don't sign. Lots of bills are pending. And some of them are even sent to the President of India, and President of India also sits on those bills. So politically, the legislature, the duly elected, popularly elected legislatures of the states are stifled. Their democratic rights are stifled. This is one. The second thing is there are states from which the union government collects 1 rupee and gives back only about 30 paisa or 32 paisa or 20 paisa, 28 paisa. And there are states from where the government of India collects 1 rupee and gives 4 rupees, 5 rupees, 6 rupees per rupee. Those who they favor tend to get a better deal. Those who are not favored. And this whole slogan you must have heard about double engine sarkar during the election campaign. If you elect our own government, it will be double engine sarkar and you get a lot of funding. And if you go against that, if you elect another party, then the funds are squeezed. Now, the government of India says that, look, we can't do anything because all this is laid down in the Finance Commission reports. And we have to necessarily follow what the Finance Commission says, and the devolutions are according to the Finance Commission reports. That is what the government of India's defense is. But that is what they say technically. But then they have found a way to squeeze funds and favor some and not favor some. I'll tell you how. The divisible pool is only of the taxes. But when the government of India collects cesses and surcharges, they do not form part of the divisible pool. And the government of India had collected almost about 40 lakh crores outside the divisible pool. And it is those, by deploying those, you can either punish a state government or favor a state government, disfavor a state government or favor a state government. This is another route that they have, invented. They're using this route. This is another one. And sometime back there was how much time did it take already?
Please go ahead. Please
Yeah.
go ahead. I think it's going well.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still go ahead.
Okay. I'll conclude this by making another 2 points. This is insofar as the federalism is concerned. I talked about the pluralism. Then, of course, the politically speaking, the way state governments have been destabilized, defections organized, governments were wrecked time and again, and huge monies paid. And of course, now we have known, now recently we've come to know where this kind of a cash has come from in the electoral bonds and, a raid and a bond purchase. A bond purchase and award of a contract. This is another method that we have seen. Not only for awarding the contracts and extorting money, but even the spectrum which went in favor of Airtel. But when people looked at and the kind of gigantic efforts that the government had made in order not to uh, reveal the data of electoral bonds, they went on pleading with the State Bank of India. I mean, with the Supreme Court, the State Bank of India. Just a few hours, just about 48 hours before the deadline, the State Bank of India goes back to the Supreme Court and says that it's a huge exercise. We won't be able to do it, and they wanted time till uh, June 30th, and after the elections. These are the attempts that are being made. So the character of New India is such today that the opposing voices are being silenced. Political parties are broken. They are being silenced. Opposition governments run by opposition parties in various states, most of them have to face every day some kind of a threat or the other. And the economy, unprecedented level of price rise, youth unemployment, falling labor participation ratio, increasing debt, falling domestic savings as well as investment. And a lot of increasing number of people relinquishing the Indian citizenship and going away. And most of them happen to be high net worth individuals. In addition to that, a lot of illegal migration to different countries, that is also in evidence. And during the discussion, probably there will be an occasion to talk about government claims of fastest growing economy, fifth largest economy, and of course, multi-dimensional poverty, which has the government claims has come down. I think these things we need to talk about, and I do not want to take the entire everything in my initial submission. But these are the important things that I think we should talk about them. And then the pulling up of 30 crore people out of poverty, below poverty line. These also need. These are the claims that the government is making. So we need to examine them also. If you examine them, then of course we will know what exactly is the code of this new India. Now, this code, Aniruddha, is now reached a point where if this drift is not stopped, the drift in the economy, the drift in the constitutional values, democracy, as Dr. Pitroda had pointed out, the threats to democracy, plurality, the kind of dog whistles that you hear now from, small groups and, dharma sansas and things like that. There will be a day, if this is not stopped, that you hear them as no more as dog whistles, but as open calls from the ramparts of Red Fort. That is the kind of danger that we are staring at. And don't think that any state will be safe. And what is happening in Manipur will not happen elsewhere. This is something that we need to keep in mind. And this numbness, this indifference, it's happening for the last 1 year almost in Manipur. And we've become indifferent to it now. I'm not talking about people people like you in the US, but even in India, it is not a point of discussion anymore. It's become normal. Now, another important feature of this new India is that it has somehow managed to normalize the abnormal and abnormalize the normal. We can talk about in detail about these things when we get into the Q&A. Aniruddha. Thank you very much.
So first of all, thank you, Prabhakar. I mean, I really liked how you put difficult technical discussions, inflation and all that in very simple ways that anybody like me can understand and myself can understand. So let's go with some questions we have here. And I will just go through the chat. If you have questions, please put in the chat. I'll start from the top. The first question was, what takes India now? I see lots of car on the road, restaurants are full, and people celebrating festivals. So, sab changa hai, basically. We see sab changa hai. Everything is so going well. So, what these numbers, I mean, does it matter? So, what is actually happening?
Okay. This is interesting. You see, your population, your means United States population, is about 330 million.
Yeah.
India's middle class is about that size. Middle class, upper middle class. Your cars and restaurants and airports and all that. But you are talking about in India, which is not 33 crores. And most of these European governments and American government, and the huge investment bankers and financial institutions, FIIs, what do they look at when they look at India? They look at India as a market. And what is Indian market? Indian market is 33 crores. Now, if that is doing well, it is doing well. But you ask any of the multinational corporations, MNCs, which are into the FMCG. For FMCGs is the rural market, which is very high. All the FMCGs say that the rural market is not picking up.
Yeah. Can I ask you what is FMCG?
Fast moving consumer goods.
Okay.
Hindustan Lever, all these. So their sales in the rural market are very tepid. In fact, rural offtake of credit is also very tepid. And as I said, the demand for Manrega has been growing. Why would anybody go and demand work which pays you minimum wage? When a good wage and a good job is available, good work is available, they won't go. And in 2019, if you remember, there was a report by the National Statistical Organization on the situation of unemployment in India, and it leaked. The government suppressed it before the elections, but however, it leaked, and that report said unemployment rate in India in 2019 was the highest in the last 40 years, and since then it has become worse. I'll give you a simple example. Sab changa hai. If that is the case, if that is the case, why is India quite low on the World Hunger Index? One. Second, but the government said, look, World Hunger Index, their methodology is flawed, and it's basically anti-India propaganda, and India is not sleeping hungry, and all that kind of a thing they do. They say that. But if that is the case, why did the Prime Minister choose to announce that the government of India would give 5 kilos of food grains free of cost? Why did he choose if India is not hungry? The World Hunger Index is misleading. He wouldn't have done that. Not only that, there's one more thing that you must keep in mind. Recently, just a few days ago, under a week ago, the chief economic advisor, Anand Nageshwaran, he said, creating unemployment, etc., are not the government's job. That's not, but the political party on the other hand says that we will create 2 crore jobs per annum. That's the promise.
Yeah.
But this is another one. And it's painful to talk about this data because especially people like you who are living abroad, you would like India to do well. And if somebody says India is doing well, you feel nice about it. And if somebody like me comes along and says, look, India is not doing well, you might view me with suspicion. That what is this, doomsday, kind of a talk. People ask me, can't you say anything? Can't you see anything good in India? I'll come to that. But then it's like this. Especially because, you see, you want your peers in the US or wherever you go, UK, France, or wherever, you want all of them to talk high about India, to look up to India. So that's your dream. It's my dream too. But, I want India to really do well, not just project that it is doing well when it is not doing well. No, you have G20 and all the leaders from different countries come here, and you screen off, where the cavalcade goes, you screen the streets, you put up huge screens so that people don't get to, the visitors don't get to see what's happening behind those screens, mohallas and other things they don't get to see. Is that the way you want to run the country? Is that the way you want to project India is doing very well? Now, look at this data, which is an authentic data. Anemic children aged between 6 and 59 months, anemic children in India are 67%. Anemic women aged between 15 and 49 are 57%. Stunted children under the age 5 are 33.5%. Children wasted, their limbs are wasted, weak, that is about 20%. Now, you call this Changasi? Since you talked about, the kind of projection that's happening in the world, don't think that people like World Bank and institutions like World Bank and IMF and different bankers, investment bankers, they don't know what is happening in India, but they are looking at only the 33 crore, 330 billion or 300 billion. That is the market. But the rest of India, they're not bothered about it. It's going fast. And therefore, the inequality that I talked about, inequality labs report, that is a reflection of this. Not only that, if you look at the automobile sales, SUV sales are upbeat. Two-wheeler sales are tepid. What does it show? It shows acute inequality. And the consumption. Consumption is not rising above 3 to 3.5. When the consumption is not rising, it indicates something, because that means that the people have no money in their pockets.
Yeah.
Because there is huge unemployment.
Okay. Thank you. And I think my thought was the socio-economic structure where we live, we don't like connect to the people who live in slums and rural areas, and that may be one of the reasons we see. And our friends and everyone, they work in software and they work in those areas, and like I don't know anybody in my relatives who really works as a laborer per se, right? So then we'll go to the next question. So despite this kind of unemployment, we don't see any unrest on ground. Why could that be? Is it, and I had the same question, but I will just add my thought to it. Is it just the projection of power that people get mystified and get fooled by?
Aniruddha, don't say that you don't find unrest.
Okay.
Because the media is under control. They don't get onto the headlines. They don't get onto your 9 o'clock news debates. Have you come across any regular footage of what is happening in Manipur?
No, except YouTube maybe.
And do you come across any regular news reportage about the farmers' agitation?
No. No, we get news. I mean, most of the news that we see,
regular news outlets. I'm not talking about.
But most of the news I get in newspapers or news outlets in India are about Anil Ambani's son's wedding. That's the most important news. Yeah. Okay. So the other.
Let us not be under the illusion that these things are not being expressed.
Okay.
They are being expressed. Only thing is that they are not reaching the headlines because the media is complicit.
Yeah.
They're under pressure.
Okay. The other question was, as Indians in the USA, how can we contribute except for Facebook activism? And before you answer this question, Prabhakar, just one thing for the participants. I see many hands being raised. I don't know how to handle that, but if you have questions, please put in the chat. That way we can get to all the questions. Okay. So the question was, how can we contribute except for Facebook activism? As people who are living in the United States, what can we do?
I would have faced an equally intense dilemma. If I were to live in the United States, what could I do? But you see, I will not be very pessimistic about it, because these days ideas, thoughts can travel very fast. Communication travels very fast. You can start speaking up. You can help highlighting which the government wants to hide. You can probably, have your own sources, because uh, it's not very difficult to get footage from India. You can have your own network contacts. Concentrate on, a few states that you have network and friends. Get things from there, and speak to people who are who are uh, who are scrutinizing Indian economy, who are scrutinizing the government claims. Talk to them and spread the word. And when we speak in India to fellow Indians, it has some impact probably. But people like you from the USA speak, it has much more impact. This is one. The second thing is, see if this impression that uh, the whole of NRIs are with the government, with the regime. They've all turned into clapper boys. They've all, are in the fan club. So see that impression has a huge impact on the Indian population. Because people here look up to you as somebody, who are more successful, more knowledgeable. Your impression, your opinion matters here. Therefore, if you start asking questions, if you start scrutinizing the government's claims, interrogating the government's claims, that has a lot of impact.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to say that this talk itself is that effort, like engaging with well-known economists and people who don't have any political interest right now. But there is one comment. I don't know whether this is a question or comment, but I'll just read what it has been said. This could be an extremely pessimistic, and I think this was when you were talking. This could be an extremely pessimistic or inappropriate way of thinking, but I am afraid, I have started feeling that the whole system is not a mistake, but it is intentional to create a situation where dictatorship flourishes. I think that's their opinion. If any thoughts on this one?
Yeah. See, I'll tell you about this pessimistic thing. I want to address that. As I said some time ago, I said, can't you see anything good that's happening in India?
Yeah.
People ask me that. I tell them that, look, I'm a diagnostician. And look, if you go to a doctor, and he would first diagnose you, and he would tell you, look, you have a problem with your heart.
Yeah.
Then, if I come out of the doctor's consultation room shouting, look at this fellow, such a pessimistic. Can't you see that my ears are very good, my eyes are very good, my nose is very good, my hands are very good, I'm able to talk, my voice is nice. He doesn't say anything of that. He just talks about uh, only talks about, my heart. That's very, very important. It is, I mean, and there are people who can tell the government, you're doing this very nicely, you're doing that very nice, you're doing this very nice. That is not our job. We have to go into the heart of the matter and say, look, this needs to be fixed. When 24% of your young population, 24% is the headline. But let me tell you, youngsters between the age of 20 and 25, the unemployment rate among them is 40%. And we have a huge demographic dividend. 53% of our country's population is considered categorized as young. Now, if you don't give them work, if you don't give them income, if you don't engage them productively, if you don't give them gainful employment, Is the economy in crisis? Is it pessimistic? Now, if 1 year allocation for Manrega is exhausted in 6 months, is it pessimistic? It's a fact. It is not an allegation. It is a very hard data. And if 2.25 lakh Indians are relinquishing their citizenship and going, most of them HNIs, and domestic savings falling, investment falling, is that being pessimistic? Now, look, you see, thing is this. Investment bankers, they look at, what is the Indian economy doing? How much is the capex? How much is that expenditure? This expenditure? These are the things that they talk about. Have you heard any of these pink papers and any of these business, houses, investment bankers talking about what is the rural consumption? What is the agriculture output? Where is the growth coming from? Now, if you say that, our last quarter, our growth was 8.4%. That is what the government projects. Well, it needs a bit of a treatment. Maybe there might be a question I can treat then, or if you want me to treat it now, talk about it now, I can talk about it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
You see, it's like this, Aniruddha. National income accounting is generally not perfect. Still, we do take, as some indication. I tell you why it is not perfect and why it has so many flaws. Let's broadly talk about what the government claims. The government claims that we have overtaken the United Kingdom and become the 5th largest economy. Okay. And at the same time, the government also says, the Prime Minister says, that we will be a developed country by 2047. That is our target. Now, my question is this. If you have overtaken a developed country, if you agree that the United Kingdom is a developed country, if you have overtaken a developed country, what are you?
A developed country.
Then why are you saying that you will be a developed country in 2047?
Yeah.
And developed country is 47, that is one. 5th largest economy, one. But where are you in terms of per capita income? You say in total GDP volume, you're 5th largest. But it doesn't mean anything to the common person. To some extent, what really signifies anything for a common person is the per capita income. Even that is flawed. I'll come to that also. But in terms of per capita income, where is India? 140. Do you know? 5th largest economy is, in terms of per capita income, is at 140. Now, how do you, if you want to go on deluding yourself that we are doing very well with this kind of unemployment, with this kind of per capita income, how are you going to, how are you saying that you're doing very well? Now, the discrepancy between the GDP figures, 8.4%, and the consumption figures. Normally the standard deviation between GDP and consumption figures, growth of GDP and consumption growth figures, the deviation is acceptable if it is 0.5% to 1%. So maximum 1% or 1.5% if you want to be a bit more liberal. Now, the consumption growth in India steadily has been between 3 and 3.5%. Now, even if you take it at 3.5% and add the highest amount of consumption discrepancy, that is 1.5%. That comes to
5%. 5%.
Now, government claims that the GDP has grown by 8.4%.
So why would you produce if you are consuming only 5%?
So, which means, that the figures are not reliable. There's one more thing which is happening in India, which is very, very sad to remark. That is this: that the statistical architecture in India today stands discredited. People say it's unreliable. The government doesn't release figures anymore.
Okay.
Even what they release, like 8.4, 8.5, and things like that, they're unreliable because, you see, we have stopped collecting data from the informal sector, from the unorganized sector for a long time now, after this government came. Now, what we do in the absence of the data from the unorganized sector, we proxy the organized sector onto it. And then, you paper over the rural distress and demonetization and COVID and all the impact that it had on these things had on the unorganized sector, rural sector. You ignore that. You proxy this growth onto that and say that we are growing, but it is not reliable. And one more thing that the government has been doing very successfully, and it doesn't listen to any questioning on this, is this: that in old India, 1 kilometer of a 4-lane road is 1 kilometer of a 4-lane road. In new India, 1 kilometer of a 4-lane road is 4 kilometers. Now you can see.
Yeah.
Rapidly developing.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is, it's just a comment, but it says a lot. The thinking Indian youth, so people who can really think in India as well as US, should listen to this narrative by Prabhakar on economy. The symptoms of economic problems and facts are put so simply and effectively before us. So really, I mean, this is understandable, because talking to an economist, if you have insomnia, that is the best medicine you can have probably, but that was not the case. We were kept alive. The other question here is, and I'm going one by one, so please bear with us. All of these facts are so relevant. Any even slightly rational person should not be voting for BJP. However, there are still around 35 to 40% of voters who choose BJP. In some states, this number goes up to almost 50%. Why do these people just not care? What are the non-factual, emotional, or other reasons why people continue to vote for BJP? And how does INC or India bloc counter this? So this is more like, okay, the electoral success BJP or portrayed electoral success BJP had.
Another, you see, our parliamentary democracy is designed in such a way that you don't have to have a majority of vote in order to get majority of the seats. In 2014, the BJP's vote share with all its allies put together. For instance, if it contests in alliance with say Shiromani Akali Dal, in many constituencies, the Shiromani Akali Dal vote component for a constituency which is contested by the BJP will be higher. But then, because the BJP candidate polls the entire vote, it comes into the account of the BJP. So if you look at that way, the BJP has polled about 27% in 2014. So with 27% of vote, it has captured the majority of seats.
Yeah.
Okay. Now 19, that went up to 33%. Till almost about 67% is outside. So please don't be under the impression that, BJP is all powerful. It has got the majority. If somebody said 50% or something, it's just not. And if you look at it, I mean, I mean, this is subject to be questioned and debated. But I'll just put forward one proposition here. UPA 2 had faced very heavy headwinds in terms of policy paralysis, corruption allegations, 2G, CWG, and all those kind of things. India against corruption. And most of the people, middle class, articulate, professionals, got disgusted with that and voted that government out and voted this government in. So if you look at the BJP's vote share until then, under Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Advani, the maximum they could reach was about 21%. So, riding on the back of this India against corruption movement, BJP vote share because urban, middle class, articulate, professionals, people who are disgusted with the corruption, all those things. And of course, even if there are 10 people who are impacted by this, elections, what happens is there's something called a bandwagon effect.
Mhm.
If 10 people, are going, another 10 people might follow them. If
Yeah.
you're going, I'm sure there were 10, 15 people follow you. That way, there's a bandwagon effect. All that put together has brought their maximum was now, maximum that they could come to is about, 35%. And you have to take out the allies contribution and all that. Just the BJP's thing. Now,
Anirudh,
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anirudh, I would like 5 minutes to add to what he's saying, whenever
Yeah.
convenient.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, sir. After this question, sir, you can talk. Yeah. Yes. Prabhakar, please finish your thoughts there.
This is one. And the next thing is from here is that the major the plank, the moral high ground of the BJP is lost after the electoral bond.
Yeah.
I tell you, Anirudh, people may not be able to believe, but I could see a lot of people are now questioning the moral high ground of BJP. Electoral bond is now being seen as not only the biggest scam in India, but as the biggest scam in the entire world. In fact, I would call this as Modi Gate. It is no less than that. Coupled with, because of this losing of moral high ground, a large section of this which accrued to BJP post 2014, 2013-14 timeline, they are going to go away from BJP. So BJP is actually not doing very well politically to me.
Okay. Sam, sir, if you want to add, and especially when they were talking about INC or India Alliance. So, Sam, please.
Thank you. I want to add to Dr. Prabhakar's presentation. To me, BJP has basically captured all of the institutions. So institutions are no longer autonomous, whether it is Election Commission, ED, CB, police, security, state governments, you name it, including to some extent judiciary. So everybody draws government line, and if you don't, you get punished, you get transferred, your career gets ruined. Two, civil society has been completely killed in the name of foreign exchange violation, this rule, that rule. I have a lot of close friends who work as NGOs for 30, 40 years, and they cannot function at all. 3, media is completely bought out and controlled. So what you and I see on an average television is government line, and no one gets fair share of the media.
Yeah.
Every event is choreographed. I mean, look at the way the Ram Temple was choreographed. That it is all about one man. You know, I saw the other day conversation between Bill Gates and Prime Minister Modi. I thought it was pathetic. That Prime Minister of the country keeps telling that I did this and I did that in digital space. And people believe it. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with 20 people, and they thought that digital payment was invented by Modi. I mean, they literally thought it. And these were educated people. And I had to remind them that this was invented during Manmohan Singh's time. There was a committee set up on digital payment. Nandan Nilekani and I chaired that committee. And we are the one, at that point in time, a group. And nothing gets done with one person. But PM takes credit for everything.
Mm-hmm.
People let him do it.
Yeah.
In last 10 years, PM has not had one press conference. How can you say it is democracy when PM is not willing to talk to public and press? Everything that I see is choreographed. Messages are crafted. Attacks are systematically organized, whether it's on Rahul or INC or somebody else. Systematic attack with all the institutions combined, whether it's Kejriwal or Shahrukh Khan's son. It just happens over and over again. So public see this as enemies. And these are not enemies, these are good people. So good people have turned out to be seen as bad, and bad people are really controlling the government. At the end of the day, these are the people who killed my Gandhi. I have no more conversation. I'm not willing to listen to anything else. And they are being celebrated today. There is something fundamentally wrong in the country. People are coward. They don't speak up. Everybody wants to join the bandwagon. You show them a lollipop, and they are behind you. Where is the Gandhian India, where you stand up for the right cause? And that's what Dr. Prabhakars of the world are doing. And we need to join them. We need to support them. Situation is much more serious than people in America realize. I think people in the US are naive in many ways. They have no idea of what the realities are. They're all my friends. I respect all of them. I love all of them. But they have no idea. Things are pretty serious. India is being hijacked. And if 2024 election, the way it looks now, is won by BJP, it will be very difficult to recover from it. Okay. It is really SOS. But people don't get it.
Yeah.
I am very concerned about India. And I hope that many of us speak up, convince our families and friends. And it's very difficult to convince your own family.
True.
Against Ram Mandir and temple and all this stuff. There is a wall created and you cannot communicate with them. Yeah. And they have done it in a very nice way. I got to give them credit for it.
Yeah.
But we have very little time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sam. Well said. I'll just go to the next question. There was one question, Prabhakarji. What do you think about corporate tax rates? That's an interesting question. Any thoughts on that?
Corporate tax rates or rates?
Corporate tax rates, how...
Rates. Now, after the electoral bond data has come out, Now we know what the raid was about and why raid was conducted, and why.
No, it's not a raid, sir. RATES. Raids.
Yeah, raid.
Yeah.
The two things have happened. The government really wanted the corporate sector to manufacture, to increase up their activity. So they have resorted to two things. One is to reduce the corporate taxes. They've reduced it. Now I'll tell you and reduction is quite substantial, Aniruddha. Reduction is so substantial. There are two categories in that. One category is the old corporates, corporates that are established, and the other one is the new manufacturing units. For the old rate from 30 to 22% reduction, and for the new ones, 25 to 15% reduction. If you start a new one under the old regime, it used to be 25% corporate tax. That is reduced to 15%. Under the old rate, the old corporates used to pay 30. That has come down to 22%. The government has been losing substantial amount of money because of this, which means that the corporates are benefiting. That is one. The second thing I've explained about the haircut the banks have taken. Huge haircuts the banks have taken. Write-downs for nearly all put together is almost coming to about 40 lakh crores. If it is the scheduled banks and the big banks, of course, it's only about 25 lakh. It's not only, it's about 25 to 27 lakh crores. These two things have been done by the government. And there is another thing called the production linked incentives. That's also included, with the hope that the corporate sector would respond and up their production, up their investments. But in spite of all this, in spite of the government and the Prime Minister repeatedly appealing to the corporate sector, the investments in the corporate sector is not going up. The another measure that the government of India had done, and what they call, very interestingly, is crowding in the private investment by putting in a lot of public investment. So it's called the crowding in strategy. Even then, the domestic investment has not risen. Yeah. So rates are reduced with no effect. Write-downs are done with no effect. Production-linked incentives were given with no effect.
So now in this case,
Make in India has not taken off. Now you had since we have talked about, I mentioned Make in India. The problem with this government has been, one, of course, as Dr. Pitroda had said, that things done by other people earlier are projected as they. For instance, just by changing the name, Nirmal Bharat has become Swachh Bharat, and all that kind of thing. You have very jazzy slogans. Make in India, Startup India, Khelo India, Stand Up India, Digital India, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao kind of a thing. But for instance, I'll give you one example of Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. 80% of the funds allocated to Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, 80%, 79.8% or something like that, but 80%. That money was spent on publicizing. You know who?
Yeah.
And you have in every petrol station there's a hoarding, on the highway there is a hoarding, in the market there's a hoarding, in the social media there are advertisements, in the cinema halls there are advertisements, everything. And 80% of the money was spent on this. And as I told you, malnourished children, school education, funds to primary education, they're all suffering.
Yeah. Okay. This is an interesting question here. What are the seeds in everyone that existed earlier, but so easily grew from 2014 into this new India? Which is the real India? Who we have been now, or who we wanted to become between 1947 to 2014? Very nicely put.
Actually, this is something which is which needs to exercise everybody who is in this room, who is just now talking, and many others. You see, this particular, which Dr. Pitroda also mentioned a bit, this particular way of thinking, that whose India is this? There's one school of thought which says that India belongs to everybody. Another school of thought believes and believed that India belongs to Hindus. Okay. But Aniruddha, the second category, which is now ruling, that India belongs to Hindus, is not new. It's always been there. For a long time it's there. And, even 1818, after the Third Maratha War, since then, in the public domain, many people said it is this is a Hindu country. And there were other people who said, no, everybody, it's as Jawaharlal Nehru said, it's a palimpsest. One layer after the other, one layer after the other. So many people came here, settled here, lived here, made this their homeland, that kind of palimpsest. And the most fertile ground for this kind of a politics to really raise its head was soon after partition, soon after independence, when thousands of dead bodies were coming from that side of the border to this side, and a lot of communal holocaust, violence, people of bloodshed, hundreds and thousands of bodies going from this side to the other side of the border. That was the time when communal passions were very high. It was a conflagration. Millions of people were homeless. They were refugees in and around Delhi, in and around Calcutta, so many places. That was the most fertile ground. And the leaders who championed this second stream of thought, that India belongs to Hindus, were very tall leaders like Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Balraj Badok, Karpatri Maharaj, Golwalkar. All those people were around. You're familiar with most of these names. But at that time, that did not gain ground. Compared to them, the leaders that we have today are very small. But the leaders who championed that India belonged to everybody were tall, they had popularity, and they championed this, and they stopped this kind of a menace to grow. Okay. One more thing I must add here. Our constitution was made when the debates took place for about 3 years. I think it was December 46 to November 49, roughly about 3 years. And that was the testing time for India. During this period, partition took place and bloodshed took place, communal conflagration, violence, bloodshed, direct action, Jinnah, all that kind of a thing was taking place on both sides of India, both western flank or as well as the eastern flank. And most of the people who were in the Constituent Assembly, they were also holding positions in the government. They were day to day, they were dealing with these problems. They were visiting the refugee camps, looking after the arrangements there and coming back, going to their offices, and from there coming to the Constituent Assembly. They were debating what should be the character of Indian state. In the midst of that kind of a turmoil, the idea that India should be a plural country, India should be a secular country, India should be a democratic country, India should be a liberal country, prevailed. Imagine the broadness of these people. In the midst of that kind of a crisis, for 3 years they deliberated and gave us this constitution, which had these core values. But what happened? Why did we arrive at this place? Slowly and slowly, with very few honorable exceptions, almost every political party started doing business with these people, with these forces. In the government, outside support, joining this government, something or the or in some way or the other endorsing their agenda. I'll tell you one example. Even BJP used to say that they were secular party. Do you remember?
Yeah. Gandhiwadi Samajwad slogan.
Yeah. Gandhian socialism and secularism. We are all secular, but genuinely secular. Not pseudo-secular like Congress and communists. That used to be the thing. But Aniruddha, today, most of the political parties and most of the political leaders, what are they saying? We are also Hindu, but not like them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Used to be, we are also secular, but not like Congress and communists. Today, every party is saying we are also Hindu, but not like BJP. Now, look at the shift that has taken place. Now, here is the main thing, that when from 1818 to 1820s, Phule, the clashes between Phule and Tilak and, Gokhale, Gandhiji, a lot of turmoil took place. Savarkar was alive and all these. Still, these secular values, liberal values, plural values prevailed, even in the Constituent Assembly and after that. The reason was there was a dedicated leadership and cadre who championed these values. But those political parties have merely reduced themselves to election fighting machines. Between one election, the other election, these parties do nothing. They've forgotten political education. They don't talk about anything. They think that you can just win the election. When that was happening, there was a dedicated groups and organizations which went on working relentlessly without expecting quick results, without expecting recognition, limelight, or rewards. Hard work, away from the limelight. That kind of a work in the absence of, upholding constitutional values has landed us here. Now, that brings me to say this, Aniruddha. When communal ideas have an army to defend them and to protect them and to promote them, When that is there, when secular and liberal values have no army,
Yeah.
this is what happens. People like us will sleep well if secular, liberal, democratic values have a dedicated army to defend and to work for them.
Mhm. Yeah.
That is why we landed here. We lack that.
Okay. Pretty good analysis. Thank you, Prabhakar. The next one was really, where do you think, we talked about debt, the government debt and all that, right? So where do you think has gone the money raised through debt? And I think to that question, I will also add that first time in India's history, government mandated Reserve Bank to give the money that they have, the cash that they ask them to transfer it to the government. And they usually reserve banks do transfer, but they asked, hey, you are sitting on a lot of money, give it to us. So where did this money really go?
Aniruddha, it's a mystery to me also. There is debt, huge amount of debt. You said exactly. I would say that the government has raided the Reserve Bank. Second. Third, they also have proceeds from the selling of public
Assets.
makings.
Mhm.
When they have all this and they're absolutely doing nothing, where is it all going? I think like what happened with electoral bonds, this will also have to come out. There's
Okay.
something is happening. I'm telling you, lot of things are happening which are very, very detrimental to India. And not just the idea of India, even the physical structure of India. That's alarming. This remains a mystery even to me. As you said, Reserve Bank reserves,
Yeah.
debt, and the sale of public sector.
Yeah. So we are about at the top of the hour. I would still like to dedicate like 10-15 minutes. And I'll just go, like, some people have asked multiple questions, so I will probably skip the question and try to get other people's question answered. So I would say we will give another 10 past the hour. So that will be 9:40 would be the time where we can cut off. Or uh, the uh, the one question I have here, this was a most succinct summarization of the new India with all the data possible. We are being told that this government will return after the general election. What does this mean? The economic performance and anti-incumbency are not factors anymore? That's the question. Why those are not factors, or some other voting concerns trump people's economic pain? Like, are there any other concerns people have, that they say, oh, I don't care about this, I only care about this, and that's why this government needs to come back?
So far, that is the story, Buddha. Even after the huge suffering people had undergone after demonetization
Mm.
and COVID deaths, and massive dislocation lives, and hundreds and thousands of migrant labor walking from one end of the country to the other end. In spite of that, the ruling party was not punished. So two things can account for this. One, of course, as I said, the Indian democratic setup is such, it's structured such a way that with minority number of votes, you can, get majority of seats. That's one. That's just a flaw that we have. I mean, that can be addressed. That should be addressed eventually. That's a different thing. But the other thing is the disunity among the opposition people who do not endorse these values. There's a lot of disunity. These two. The other thing is that the uh, the appeal to majoritarian instincts. I'll tell you what. I'll give you my own experience. I did. I also, for my profession, I also do opinion polling.
Mhm.
I did a huge opinion poll for 2012 Gujarat election. That time, I toured the entire state. I spoke to a lot of people, and my team did the quantitative work, and I was doing the qualitative collection of insights and data. When I was talking to people, and I could see, except the arterial main roads, most of the roads in the state in Gujarat, they were not very good roads. They were actually bad roads. And I could see a lot of young people without work hanging around here and there. And agriculture was not doing well. All those things I could see with my naked eye. But when I spoke to people, they would say that vibrant Gujarat is doing very well. This government will return and all that kind of a thing. And then, but when I pointedly asked them, I see a lot of young people unemployed. They say, "Oh, to hai." Then I see roads are very bad. Wo bhi hai. Then I say, there's a lot of garibi. Wo bhi hai. Then where is vibrant Gujarat? And why do you think that the government would return in 2012? Then that is the scratching of the surface. When I do that, the actual reason they said then, वो ये सब है, लेकिन इन्होंने उन लोगों का सबक सिखा दिया. So that held. And in the face of a core group en bloc voting for that, and the majority which is outside that thrall dividing, then this gains significance. So that is what happened. But my feeling is that that lesson was not learned by many people.
Yeah.
Which means what? The economic distress, unemployment, poverty, increase of inequality, these things need to be foregrounded in the mind of the people. Not, the othering that is happening.
Yeah.
So what is foregrounded is more important. The ruling party will try to foreground the division. People who don't subscribe to that kind of a divisive kind of a politics will have to foreground unemployment, price rise, rural distress, debt, and all the ills, inequalities. These things have to be foregrounded. So it is a question of who succeeds in foregrounding their agenda.
Yeah. Got it. So there is one question here. Can you explain GDP growth on between the last 10 years versus like 2004 to 2014? I think they meant probably 2014 to 2024 and 2004 to 2014, like UPA 1, UPA 2, Modi 1, Modi 2. If you compare the GDP.
No, but you see, as I said in the initial opening remarks, I don't want this to be a UPA versus NDA kind of discussion.
Yeah.
However, I mean, I don't want to see. As I said, the inflated figures that you see today are 8.4%, 8.2%. This quarter 8.4%, previous quarter it was 8.2%, before that it was 8.1%. And then all these come after you've adjusted the base year one. Another thing is, you see, remember, in 2016 we had demonetization.
Yeah.
And which had given a major shock to the economy. And immediately after that, COVID struck. And during COVID in 22, one quarter, we had gone down to minus 23%. So whatever from a low base, whatever little gain that you have, it looks very high, although it is not very high. As I said, if you compare the consumption and the growth projections, There's a huge discrepancy. I'll give you one norm, just to make it non-technical. I'll give you an example. Aniruddha, suppose my income is 100 rupees.
Mhm.
And my income grows in 1 year from 100 rupees to 200 rupees. What is my growth?
100%.
See, you earn a lakh of rupees and you increase your income to 1,20,000 rupees. What is your growth?
Not good at math, but maybe 2% or whatever that is.
So, see, you are earning 1,20,000, but your growth is 2%. I'm earning 200 rupees. My growth is 100%.
Yeah.
This is how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Therefore, now if you look at the 2004 to 2014 average undisputed, with I'm telling you the conservative figure is about 7.5, 7.8% growth. Here, if you take out the propaganda and inflating of figures like what I said, it is at any rate it is not crossing 5.2, 5.3.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
the kind of situation that we have. But the completely unreliable, undependable government statistical architecture gives you a lot of figures. Don't
Yeah.
go.
Okay. So we are close to we have actually extended, but it was a very engaging conversation. Sam sir, I would like you to thank Prabhakar ji and also conclude this if you don't mind.
She has not spoken at all.
Yeah. Sam probably left. Okay. But I think, hey, first of all, Prabhakar ji, thank you so much. It has been, we had so many questions that are yet not answered. And I think if we continue, this could go on for 1 more hour. But it was very engaging. And the thing that I liked the most is that how easily you explain this. And I think this is just the beginning, and we are going to have more such conversations, and definitely Prabhakar ji, we will have more such conversations with you. So thank you so much, and I think the message is stay informed, seek diverse sources, and keep digging for the truth. And I would just say Jai Jagat and conclude this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's giving me an opportunity.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Recording stopped.